Hello and good afternoon. It is Thursday, May the 19th. You are listening and watching to PLAR History and Geography live right now at WASA in Silico. Once again, my name is Jonathan. I am your teacher for this course. Feel free to ask any questions throughout the lesson. We are at the end of week number 5, which means there are only 4 more weeks left in this term of term 2B. If you're counted down, there are 20 more school days left. That is not including the holiday Monday coming up or the weekend. So 20 more school days left in this term before term 2B is done, before we look forward to graduation and the summer. Again, just a reminder, continue to work on those assignments. I know everyone is working super hard on them. Again, the deadline to submit any PLAR assignments is Friday, June the 17th. That is the last official day to submit any work. If you submit work after this due date of Friday, June the 17th, it will not be marked until September. So again, work hard. Don't be discouraged. Continue to work on those assignments, submit them before this due date. That way we can mark them and give you important, timely feedback. That way you can improve and achieve your goals. Again, like always, feel free to listen by radio, 91 FM. You can call in the Wausau studio at 1-800-465-7144. If you want to listen live with us in class, ask any questions. I need to open up this smartboard. My apologies for that. Alright, now my mic is turned on. Smartboard is on. We're good to go. Again, you can get in touch with me. Feel free to call me during my office hours. You can reach me on my cell on evenings, on weekends. Again, feel free to send me off an email or inbox me in Facebook. Again, all the lessons are recorded. You can always go back and check it out on my timeline, which I post a link to my YouTube channel, or you can always go back to the Wausau archive page as well. Again, all those information are exactly the same. No changes there. Today we will be starting the second portion of this course. We're now done history. We'll be looking at geography. So again, class, you still need your textbook and you still need the workbook. All those exactly the same, just that geography will be contained in lesson number 4 and lesson number 5. Okay, in terms of your workbook, all the questions you'll find for geography again are in lesson number 4 and lesson number 5. Again, if you have Bridget's smartboard, again, you can log on to see it on my screen live. Again, we can always send you a USB stick with all the information and lessons as well. We had an open house yesterday, barbecue. It was fantastic. A lot of people came out. Lots of fun. Just a reminder, if you want to write and when you're eligible to write the history test, you must attempt all 8 assignments, lesson 1 to lesson number 8. All those questions, you must at least attempt them, submit them, that way I can mark it, that way I can get a sense that you're ready in order to write the test. So once I feel that you're ready, I will give you the green light, I'll send off the test to your DEC, and then you can write the test at your Learning Center supervised by your DEC. But we looked at Canadian history since the early 1900s till present time. So we're halfway through this course. We're done history. So we're done looking at a broad survey of Canadian history since the 1900s, exploring social, political, military, economic, and cultural perspectives. We also dealt with and examined issues including political struggles and development, Aboriginal claims and conflicts, immigration, social reforms, regionalism, gender, modernization, and multiculturalism. And we also address topics such as Canada's involvement in overseas conflict, more specifically the Great Depression, World War I, World War II, constitutional adjustments, and Canada's changes place in the world. And we also emphasize key notes such as race, gender, ethnicity, class, sexuality, and how that shape women's lives in Canadian society. Again, we all explore that in the history portion that's now done. Again, feel free to ask any questions about history while we're still looking at geography. Okay? So in terms of geography, it will contain assignments number 9 and assignment number 16. Again, 8 more assignments. Some were super short, some were longer than others, but the same format are there. We'll be starting things off by looking at human geography, then we'll finish things up looking at physical geography. But since we're halfway throughout this course, for the remainder of this course, up until week number 9, we're dealing with geography. So again, switch gears, switch subjects. We're now looking at geography. But as we explore geography, please note that some other information and content that we cover in the history half may overlap and will help us understand geography. Hence why social studies, history and geography, are really linked to one another. So when it's looking at history and geography, they are really linked close together. Again, you'll see some overlapping in terms of contents. Some will be looking at a deeper understanding of and whatnot. So I got 5 points that I have created in order to help us look at history and geography together. So when studying and looking at history and geography together, number 1, it helps us to determine time. Time of place, time of content. As time changes, history change as well, and the landscape of geography around the world changes as well. Number 2, history and geography helps us to understand cause and conflict, or cause and effect. Cause and effect. Okay, because something caused it, and there's a consequence or effect that comes out of it. Again, it could be history, it could be geography as well. Number 3, it helps us to understand continuity and change. Once again, as time progresses, time change, we're constantly creating history, we're constantly changing our geographical landscape at the same time. We may not know that we are creating history at this moment, but we are. And we're also changing our geographical landscape, environments, what surrounds us as well. For example, climate change, global warming. That changes as well. Number 4, history and geography also helps us to recognize and participate in a common memory. Again, looking at history, looking at geography. Again, it all goes together with a common memory and a common history. And lastly, number 5 that I have wrote down is to help us develop a historical empathy, understanding, and sharing feelings. So when we're looking at history topics and geography topics, again, same common understanding. So our learning goals, not just for today, because it will continue, but our learning goal for the rest of this term and topics that we will be exploring will consist of, again, we're focused on geography. So our learning goals that we'll be looking at for the remainder of this course is economics, in geography, so economical geography. We'll be talking about resource management, different resource management strategies. Conservation, what we need to do in order to help protect our environment and our planet, wildlife, and whatnot. Canadian landscape. Gang, we live in this massive country, coast to coast, very big. Each province is unique on its own, has different landforms and different landscape as well. And probably last one is something that's current, global warming or climate change. So these are the majority topics that we will be discussing for the remainder of this course: economics, resource management, conservation, Canadian landscape, global warming, and climate change. Again, it all goes back to human geography and physical geography. So those are the topics that we will be discussing, like I said, over the next few weeks for the remainder of this course. So in your textbook, that's where we're starting. We're starting on page 28 in your textbook. And we're looking at not necessarily geography, but we're looking at human geography. Just want to emphasize that in this section of this course, there will be tons, and I mean absolutely tons, of definition and terminology that class you will need to be able to explain and emphasize. So again, pay close attention to a lot of definitions, a lot of keywords. Okay, so human geography, lesson number 4, that is where we will be starting for today's class. So let's define what is human geography. Again, I am on page 28 in your textbook, same textbook that you have been using throughout. We're just continuing. So human geography is the human political and cultural branch. We're looking at geography. But more specifically, we're looking at how space, not outer space, but space in general, place, land, and people link and go together. So we're looking at space, place, land, and people and human, and how we use that all goes together and connect and expand from one another. Human geography. Again, really focus on humans being able to adapt themselves to the land and to other people. So, in other words, there are 3 sections, 3 subsections that we are going to look and explore further when looking at human geography. And those 3 sections are economics geography, urbanism geography, and military geography. Again, that all goes back into human geography. Again, there will be a question on your next assignment that asks you what are the 3 main categories or 3 main subsection of human geography. Again, 1, economics, 2, urbanism, and 3, military geography. We'll probably just finish economics today. We'll finish off urbanism and military geography next week, and that will conclude lesson number 4 in regards to human geography. So lesson number 4 is not humongous, it's very, very short. We'll probably finish it next class. So all we need is just 2 classes for lesson number 4. But again, we're looking at and we're dealing with space, place, the land, and the people, how they all link and go towards one another. But more specifically, economics, urbanism, and military geography. This is what we're talking about. So, economics. Economics. Again, let's define economic geography. Again, more definitions. Again, nothing, no surprises, nothing big, just a lot of definition. Economic geography is the study of a widely varying economic conditions across the earth. It can be influenced by three categories, but not limited to. Number one, climate. So depending on where we live in the world or in Canada, the climate affects agriculture, natural resources, forestry, and more specifically, productivity, the means of production. So if we live in southern Ontario or near the equator, somewhere that's really warm or whatnot throughout the whole year, it affects our growing season. So by having warmer climate, we can grow more products, goods, and crops longer as a longer growing season, which creates the more means of productions, which means that we can create more and sell more and create more profit. Again, that also affects forestry and natural resources as well. So, depending on where we live, some provinces here in Canada have more natural resources than others. Again, we know that the prairies, lots of wheat, lots of agriculture. As you move out west, we got a lot of oil and coal and mining going on. Again, different depending on where we live. Climate. Again, climate change is happening, which may affect our growing seasons. We may now have been experiencing longer growing season. Again, pros and cons to everything. But climate is a factor. Okay, climate is a factor, whether it's man-made or naturally. Number two influence is geology. Geology, which is pretty much the study of rocks. In other words, the land form. So again, depending on where you live in the world, the space in the land itself has an impact. It could be super flat, could be a lot of rocks and gravels, it could be hills, it could be mountains, lots of rivers or lakes. Again, that really impacts us based on where we live. Okay, based on the landform. Geology, the study of rocks, the surface of the earth. And lastly, number three is social political factors. Again, different countries, different regions have different political influences and cultures that impacts people. Again, that really impacts economic growth as well, based on what they want, based on their demands, and based on their supplies as well. Again, all this goes back into the means of production, materials, products, and sales. The more you have, the more people want what you want and what you want to get rid of, and what you want to sell. Okay. For example, more developed countries such as us, Canada, and the United States, and a lot of European countries, they are considered developed countries, which means that they are more likely to have a more developed economy and more likely to trade goods to others. Alright, so that's economic geography. So now we're going to look at a fancy term called trade surplus. Again, based on means of production, based on the goods and sales, a trade surplus simply means a country, could be any country, but more likely a developed country, with more goods to export to another country than goods to import. So they have more export than imports. So let's define these two terms of imports and export so that it doesn't confuse us. So import simply means they are receiving, for example, or they are getting something. Okay, we're importing, we're giving. Okay, we're importing, we're getting something, we're receiving something, we're getting something. Okay, think of it as getting items and goods. We're importing to our country. We want something, so we are getting it, we are receiving it. Okay, that's import. Export simply means the opposite. Kind of like we're giving it away. So we're kind of, in other words, we're giving, or we're getting rid of it. Okay, so we're exporting. Someone wants something of ours, so we're giving it to them. We're trading, we're giving it away. And hopefully this arrow out. So import is coming in, export is going out. So a trade surplus simply means a country that has more items, could be anything, products, sells, goods, resources, agriculture, that a country needs, so that we're exporting, we're giving away more than we are receiving. Okay, a country with more goods to export to another country than goods to import. So, for example, Canada would be an example. Canada. Because we have here in our country lots of items and goods that we produce every single day on a daily basis. So we don't really need to get more of those products here because we already make them or produce them. However, different countries around the world don't have that luxury of what we have. So we are giving or trading away our products to them rather than importing, because we don't really need much imported items here in Canada. So that's a trade surplus. Again, don't get too confused with these terminology. So switching gears, we're going to go back and look at NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. This is on page 29 in your textbook. We already mentioned and talked a bit about NAFTA in the history portion of this course, but again, we've seen some overlapping, but we are expanding our knowledge and understanding by looking at the pros and cons of NAFTA, the good and the bad of NAFTA. We already know to a certain extent what NAFTA represent. Again, NAFTA, just a refresher, was signed on January 4th, 1994. Again, North America, so it contains Canada, United States, and Mexico. These three countries. Again, the purpose and goal of NAFTA is trade. Trade between these three countries without paying additional taxes or without taxes. So that's the goal. So that we can trade items, goods, products, whatnot, back and forth between Canada, United States, and Mexico without additional taxes, or the removal as many taxes as possible on goods. Again, we talked about taxes. No one wants to pay additional money from the pocket. So with NAFTA in place with this agreement, again, it's not a law, it's just a treaty or agreement between these three countries that they can now trade goods and items back and forth with the removal as much taxes as possible. Again, a lot of this is already covered, but let's go even further and let's look at the benefits. The benefits, the goods of NAFTA. Again, we know that as historian, we often look at both sides to the equation, whether it's beneficial or negative consequences. But right now, we're going to do the same towards NAFTA and look at the good and look at the bad to both sides. So the benefits of NAFTA, again, is simply the restrictions of tariffs or the removal of as much tax on items as possible. Okay, so what kind of items you may be asking? Well, it could be motor vehicles, automotive parts, computers, textiles, and agriculture. and many more, of course. Again, these are just some examples that can be traded back and forth between Canada, United States, and Mexico without paying additional taxes. Also, with NAFTA in place, it protects property rights. Again, that could include trademarks, copyrights. Again, you cannot take anyone's logo, cannot take anyone's slogan. Again, that's still protected within the property rights. So again, for example, United States cannot just sell Apple products to Canada, and here in Canada, we cannot just simply take that name of brand of Apple, change that name, and make it ours. No, we cannot do that. Again, that protects property rights, trademarks, and copyrights as well, even though it's now traded between different countries. Again, trading items back and forth is great. Again, we're all happy now. We get what we want. Economic growth is a big factor. Okay. We get what we want. They get what they want. Again, they want to pay more taxes. Economic growth. And as a result of economic growth, it leads to increase in standard living. Again, everyone's more happy. We get the products that we need, the technology, the high fancy, state-of-the-art, latest technology or model. Everyone's now happy. That increased the standard of living towards everyone. Again, those are just some benefits looking at NAFTA. Okay, the good side, the purpose, the intent of looking at NAFTA. So let's spend some time now and look at the other side of the equation, the bad side or the negative side or the con side. In other words, some controversies that goes along with NAFTA. These are just some of the points, some arguments that people have emphasized that leads to consequences, controversies when looking at NAFTA. Some argue that Canada and the United States oppose NAFTA because they fear jobs that would be moved towards Mexico because Mexico would pay these workers at a lower wages. So again, that just means that workers, employees in Canada and the United States are losing out because companies are allowing Mexico to work and produce their products and the goods because they pay them cheaper. And as a result, Canada and the United States have less employment and less jobs. Again, that's just one argument, one side of it. Politicians, policy experts, economists believe that as a result of this, Canada will turn into something known as a branch plant economy. Again, eventually what that means is that Canada, our economy, will be so heavily influenced by American. A lot of American companies, products will now be in Canada, and Canadian companies will be losing out, will be becoming bankrupt. That's what expert and politician predict as a result of NAFTA. Also with NAFTA, there's the controversy of farmers in Mexico opposed due to heavy agriculture subsidies. There are detrimental non-economic impacts based on health and environment factors. Poverty has risen in Mexico and wages has dropped by 20%. And there are illegal and increase of illegal immigrants in the United States and Mexico. Again, these are just some examples of the controversies why some people, politicians, experts, economists, the public, believe that NAFTA is not so much a beneficial agreement. Again, class, please note the positive and the negative of NAFTA. There will be a question asking the pros and the cons in regards to NAFTA. There is a clause in NAFTA known as Chapter 11. Chapter 11. And with that clause, Chapter 11, embedded in NAFTA, it simply allows corporations to sue federal government if they feel a regulation or a government decision has affected their investment. So any company can now sue the federal government if they feel that any regulation or government decision passed affects their investment. And as a result of this, it really scares out government from passing environmental regulation because by doing that, it can impact their investments and their product. So for example, in your textbook, again on page 31, it gives example of Methanex, a Canadian company which sued the United States, claiming that California had banned this substance in their water system, and as a result, it hurt their cells. Again, it simply says that a Canadian company, the substance has been banned in the United States, in California, and as a result, this Canadian company known as Methanex cannot sell their product in the United States or in the California region. Again, another controversy that comes out of NAFTA, and this is known as Chapter 11, which really makes a lot of companies go bankrupt because, again, it really impacts their investments and their sales. Again, this Chapter 11 clause of NAFTA goes back under controversies. So feel free to use Chapter 11 as an example when answering the question in regards to controversies in regards to NAFTA. Human rights. Human rights. This is on page 33 in your textbook. So what are human rights? Well, human rights means that people have the right to freedom, to earn fair wages at work, the right to the ability to move around their own country, the right to speak freely and have freedom of religion, and the right to be protected from danger in society. Many believe that Canada should not trade with other countries that violates or infringe upon human rights. Again, when looking back in terms of our history section, we'll look in regards to human rights and how we should promote it and how we should protect it under the UN, peacekeeping roles, and whatnot. And also believe that Canada should only trade with countries that promote human rights policies for the well-being of the citizens. So again, it's not just limited to trust, equality, freedom, hope, peace, justice, rule of law, dignity, and prosperity. But again, it talks about freedom of right to freedom, earn a fair wages, whether you're a male or female, regardless of your gender. You can now move around the country whenever you want. Freedom of speech to an extent, as long as it's not promoting hate crime or towards hate towards others. Freedom of religion, it doesn't matter what you believe in. And protection from danger from society. Okay, that all goes back on the human rights. If you think about it, it all goes back related to Bill of Rights. Again, we talked about that in the history portion. And human rights also goes back into the Charter. The Charter of Rights. And freedoms. Again, human rights, very, very similar to what we talked about. Not necessarily legal rights, but human rights in general. Again, very short lesson today. So let's get to questions on assignment 9. And if we have time, we probably do, we'll continue looking at human geography in terms of the next couple of sections. Question number 9. Again, you can find all questions on assignment number 9 in your workbook out of 18 marks. Number 1, name the 3 main topics in human geography. Name the 3 main topics in human geography. Again, a mark each. Again, that goes back into economics, urban, and military. Again, we'll talk more about urbanism and militarism geography next week when we continue looking at lesson number 4. So the 3 main topics, again, economics, urbanism or urban, and military geography. Number 2, what is economic geography? Again, simple definition. Again, how it relates to space, place, land, and the people. That's out of 2 marks. Again, class, you can find that on page 28. Again, my expectation in regards to the geography portion is exactly the same as the history half. Again, I'm still looking for details, looking for full, complete sentences. Again, we're always improving our literacy skills in regards to writing, reading, speaking, articulating, whatnot. So again, please continue to write in full, complete sentences for full marks. Again, all the answers and details are in your textbook. Question number 3, again, what is a trade surplus? Again, that's out of 2 marks. And again, class, you can find that on page 28 at the Again, we're looking at imports and exports. Again, a trade surplus is when a country has more imports than exports. Okay, a country has more exports to another country than imports. Or more a country that is giving away more goods, or trading more goods than receiving. Okay, a trade surplus. Question number 4. It deals with NAFTA. All it asks is, what does NAFTA stand for? So again, full complete sentences. You can simply write NAFTA stands for. And NAFTA is North American Free Trade Agreement. Boom, 1 mark. When was it initiated or initiated? So I'm looking for a year. It was signed on what year? And what 3 countries are part of this agreement? Okay, so Canada, we know that. United States and Mexico. Okay, that's all it is. That's all it is. What does NAFTA stand for? When was it signed? What 3 countries are part of this agreement? Boom, Canada, United States, and Mexico. Pretty straightforward, right, class? Nothing difficult. Question number 5. Why did these countries, when we're talking about Canada, United States, and Mexico, want this agreement? Why did they want NAFTA? What were the benefits supposed to be? Okay, so why did Canada, United States want NAFTA? And what were the benefits supposed to be? 3 marks. Again, so go back in your textbook, read through that section in regards to NAFTA. Again, we already point out some benefits in regards to NAFTA. Feel free to use those examples as well. Okay, don't just give me one example, but give me a few benefits in regards to NAFTA. Question number 6 deals with the controversies of NAFTA. There have been many controversies since NAFTA agreement took effect. Provide details of 3 controversies of NAFTA. Okay, it could be any 3. There are tons in your textbook, but dealing with controversies. So any disputes, any disagreement with NAFTA, but give me 3. I'm looking for 3 examples. Any 3. For example, you can talk about Chapter 11, but again, explain it, give details, provide 3 examples of why or NAFTA was negative, detrimental, why was it seen as a controversy. Okay, give me 3. Again, we listed a whole bunch in our slides and my notes. Again, feel free to go back and use those examples as well. You're more than welcome. Again, the last questions, what are human rights? What are human rights? Again, this should be straightforward. We talked tons about it in our history hat. That's on page 28. Page 33. What are human rights? 2 marks. Again, if you have a good understanding of the Bill of Rights and the Charter of Rights and Freedom, boom, right there, you have a good sense of what human rights are. Again, don't just give me 1 or 2, list a few examples of human rights and what it means to have human rights. Because we as Canadians, we are fortunate and lucky enough to have human rights. And that right there, class, is assignment number 9. Straightforward. Again, we have lots of time right now in class, so I'm going to give some class a few minutes right now to work on these assignments right now. And if you have any questions, you can just let me know while we're here live in class. I don't necessarily want to start the next section because I want to stay that till next class, but I do understand that we do have some time, so we might start the next few sections as well. So let me pull that up and see what we got. So continuing and looking at human geography, again, we're looking at space, place, the land, and all that links together. So we'll start the next couple slides of next class right now since we have some time. And we're on page 33. We're going to find industries and go from there. Again, this is still lesson number 4. So there are 3 types of industries. So if you are working, you fall under one of these 3 categories. It could be primary industry, secondary industry, and tertiary industry. Depending on which field you're working, you fall under one of these 3 categories: primary, secondary, and tertiary. So let's define what these 3 industries are about. Again, definitions. So primary industries, again, primary, if you're working on this under this field, it harvests raw materials, steel, wood, lumber, or natural resources such as soil, minerals, animals, water, and whatnot into primary products. So for example, it could be agriculture, fishing, forestry, or mining. Okay, if you work under any of these examples, you fall under the primary industry. Agriculture, farming, working on the land, fishing, which I know is super popular up here in Silico. I know that tons of people will be going fishing this long weekend. Forestry, whether you're chopping down trees or whatnot, whether it's good or bad purposes. Forestry, again, that falls under primary. And mining, where you're extracting minerals from the land. So in other words, primary industry means that we are harvesting these natural resources or products into primary products, the starting point that you can refer to. Because everything comes from a certain point. Again, all technology, again, that comes from the land. We need minerals, rocks, and whatnot. Again, paper, we need trees. Again, we need a starting point. Number 2, secondary. After we have produced these manufactured goods, secondary produces these manufactured goods into primary industry or from primary industry so that goods can be used by consumers such as me, myself, and your neighbor, everyday ordinary people. Secondary industry usually are worked in large factories. So for example, if you work in a large factory, boom, you are under the secondary industry. Some examples are, again, factory manufacturers, large factories where they're building, producing, processing foods, fishing, or whatnot, plants. Okay, construction. So once primary industry have extracted that item, they turn that resource or start to produce it into everyday items. Okay, so for example, we have a big tree that we chop down. What do we do with that big tree now? Again, we take that big tree, we take it to a plant, factory, we do what we need to do with it, and then eventually turn it into a product that everyday people can be used. Again, construction or homes. Again, some of our homes are made of wood or whatnot. Again, we chop down a tree. Again, we need to now take it to a plant, a factory, cut it, slice it, chop it, shave it, and then start to produce it and build it and construct it into everyday use. And lastly, the tertiary industry is known as the service industry. And then any jobs that deals with service is known as the tertiary industry. Teachers here at Wausau and any teachers fall under this category. It provides need by primary and secondary use. It is employed by the highest number of jobs, often 3 times, and often can be found in dense populated areas. So for example, service, again, any service jobs. It could be transportation, banking, communication, entertainment, teaching, what we do here at Wausau, police, nurse, again, anything that deals with service falls under the tertiary industry, otherwise known as service, the service industry. There will be a question on assignment number 10 that deals with what are the types of sectors in terms of industry sectors. We'll get more about that next class when we continue to look at it, and we look at assignment number 10. We won't define urban right now. We'll define that next class. But again, I want to encourage everyone to take some time to work on those assignments. Again, whether you're working on history, geography, or taking any other PLAR subjects, could be math, science, or English, again, continue to work on those assignments, submit them, whether you're finished the whole lesson or just one assignment. That way, we can mark it and give you supportive, timely feedback so that it can help improve your learning as well. Again, just to remind everyone, the deadline to submit any PLAR work is June the 17th. That's the last official day to hand in any work. Again, any work that's not submitted after this due date will not be marked until September. Again, class, you have 4 more weeks left in this term after this week to submit those work. Again, I know that everyone's super hard, especially all of our potential grads. Again, graduation date is June the 29th. June the 29th over at Pelican Falls. That is our graduation date. Again, class, spend some time now. Work on those assignments. I don't usually give enough time in class to work on assignments, and I apologize for that. That's why we have some time now. Again, work on those assignments. If you have any questions, I'm here right now. Just ask us questions. I know that Lillian's always online with us, but I don't know if she can hear us and notice that. We said hi last time, but she didn't respond. So let's try that right now. Again, if you have the Smart Bridges software, you can simply write it, type it, speak in your microphone. Lots of different ways to engage as well. So next week, on Tuesday, when we're back in class, we'll finish up looking at human geography. There's not much left. Again, we'll talk about urban geography. We'll define what that is. Again, more definitions. I'll give some examples. Then we'll define military geography, what that deals with, and Canada's role on the international stage. We'll define what a Commonwealth nations is. Show you a little map about that. And that will pretty much wrap up lesson number 4. And then we'll probably have time next week on Tuesday to start lesson number 5. Lesson number 5 is just physical geography, and that is a big section, and that will take us all the way up until week number 9. Okay, so that's the agenda for the next few weeks as we wrap up this course. Again, we're almost done. We're halfway there. History section is now completed. We're now starting the geography portion. Again, work on those assignments. I know that everyone's at different stages. Some of us are still working on history. Some of us are ahead and close to finishing up and writing the tests. So again, work at your own pace, whether you're an IL student or Smart Bridget software student. Again, it doesn't matter. All the content are exactly the same. Alright, I think we're going to wrap things up and close it for today. Again, just continue to work on assignments. On Monday, there will be no classes, even though we don't have classes on Monday. But there are no classes at all here at WASA. It is the Victoria May 2 for a long weekend. So WASA is closed. All the teachers and staff are off this coming Monday. Have yourself a great long weekend. I believe the weather will be nice. I'm pretty sure a lot of people will be going fishing, which is awesome. We'll be back here on Tuesday. Class will be running as normal. And other than that, have yourself a great long weekend. And I'll see everyone next week, week number 6, as we continue looking at PLAR geography topics. Have yourself a great long weekend. Thank you. I can't say he's just not the same, and you're being